The original suit. Batman first appeared in Detective Comics number 27 on March 30th, 1939, but the costume fans know today almost didn't exist. Bob Kane's original sketch showed a character in red tights with a domino mask and rigid bat wings sticking out from his arms. It looked more like a circus performer than a creature of the night. His collaborator Bill Finger took one look and started making changes, replacing the domino mask with a full cowl, swapping the wings for a scalloped cape, adding gloves, and most importantly, removing the red entirely. Gray and black, something that could disappear into shadows. Finger also suggested leaving the eye holes of the mask blank white, with no visible pupils. This small detail would be copied by nearly every masked superhero that followed. The first published Batsuit was simple by modern standards: a gray bodysuit, black cape and cowl, short pointed ears, black boots and gloves, and a small black bat emblem on the chest. Some early panels even showed Batman wearing purple gloves due to coloring inconsistencies. This basic design, gray body, black cape, pointed cowl, would define Batman for decades, but it was still missing one element that would later become iconic: the new look. By the early 1960s, Batman comics were dying. Sales had cratered. The stories had devolved into science fiction nonsense: Batman fighting aliens, traveling through time, teaming up with Batmite and Ace the Bat-Hound. DC Comics was ready to cancel the series entirely. Editor Julius Schwartz was given 6 months to turn things around. He brought in artist Carmine Infantino to redesign the character and return Batman to his detective roots. The result was the new look Batman, debuting in Detective Comics number 327 in May 1964. The most visible change was the addition of a yellow oval around the bat emblem on Batman's chest. This gave the symbol a logo-like quality similar to Superman's iconic S shield. Infantino also streamlined the overall silhouette: smaller ears on the cowl, a sleeker cape, more athletic proportions. Some have speculated the yellow oval was added for trademark reasons, making the symbol easier to protect legally. But according to Schwartz himself, the goal was simply to signal to readers that Batman had changed. A visual cue that said, "This isn't your father's Batman." The redesign worked, sales recovered, and 2 years later, when Adam West put on the cape for the 1966 television series, his costume was based directly on Infantino's design. The yellow oval would remain Batman's standard look for the next 36 years. The Dark Knight Returns. In 1986, Frank Miller changed everything. His 4-issue miniseries The Dark Knight Returns depicted a 55-year-old Bruce Wayne coming out of retirement in a dystopian future Gotham. Miller's Batman was massive, a hulking, brutal figure with a square jaw and tree-trunk limbs. This wasn't an acrobat. This was a tank. The costume reflected that brutality. Miller kept the basic gray and black color scheme but made the bat symbol enormous, a thick black bat that stretched across the entire chest without any yellow oval. The ears on the cowl were shorter and stubbier. The overall effect was primal and aggressive, like a warning sign rather than a superhero costume. Miller famously wanted to remove the yellow oval entirely, but was told by DC that the logo was too valuable a trademark to abandon. His solution was clever. Batman begins the story wearing the traditional yellow oval, but after a brutal beating by the mutant gang leader, he switches to a new costume with a larger black bat symbol and no oval. The yellow target had served its purpose, drawing gunfire to his armored chest, but the new design signaled a more vicious Batman emerging. The Dark Knight Returns costume influenced nearly every Batman interpretation that followed. When filmmakers wanted a serious Batman, they looked to Miller. When comic artists wanted to make Batman intimidating, they drew him bulkier with a bigger symbol. The yellow oval started disappearing from the comics in the late 1990s and was officially retired in 2000, replaced by a large black bat inspired directly by Miller's design. The armored Batsuit. Nightfall. In 1993, Bane broke Batman's back in the Nightfall storyline, and Bruce Wayne passed the cowl to Jean-Paul Valley, a mentally unstable assassin formerly known as Azrael. This was a deliberate provocation by DC. They wanted to show readers what Batman would look like if he abandoned his moral code. And Jean-Paul delivered. After nearly losing his first fight against Bane while wearing the traditional Batsuit, Jean-Paul redesigned the costume from scratch. The result, debuting in Batman number 500, was a full suit of armor: metallic plating, retractable claws, bladed gauntlets, a shuriken launcher built into the forearms, and a flamethrower. The cape was replaced with rigid metallic wings. The cowl became a full helmet with a visor that glowed red. It looked like a robot designed to kill people, which was the point. Jean-Paul's Batman grew increasingly violent over the following months, eventually letting criminals die rather than saving them. When Bruce Wayne finally healed and returned to reclaim the mantle, he lured Jean-Paul into a narrow tunnel that forced him to strip off the armor piece by piece. In the end, Jean-Paul stood in the sunlight, helmetless and defeated, acknowledging that Bruce was the true Batman. The Azrael suit represented everything Batman shouldn't be, all technology and brutality with no restraint. But it also proved that readers were hungry for a more aggressive, armored aesthetic. That tension would play out in Batman stories for decades. Batman Beyond. On January 10, 1999, Warner Brothers Animation introduced a Batman for the future, teenager Terry McGinnis, in the animated series Batman Beyond. Set in a cyberpunk Neo-Gotham roughly 40 years in the future, the show depicted an elderly Bruce Wayne, now too old to fight, mentoring a new Batman. The costume Terry wore was unlike anything that came before, a sleek black bodysuit with a red bat symbol on the chest, no cape, and a full face mask that covered everything including the mouth. The traditional cape was replaced by retractable red wings that spread between Terry's arms and torso, allowing him to glide. Rocket thrusters in the boots provided actual flight capability. The suit enhanced the wearer's strength and agility, included a cloaking device for invisibility, and integrated all the traditional Bat gadgets directly into the costume rather than a separate utility belt. Creators Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, and Alan Burnett designed the suit to represent the logical endpoint of Batman's technology. If Bruce Wayne kept upgrading his equipment for another 40 years, what would it look like? The answer was a suit that transformed an ordinary teenager into something superhuman. Batman Beyond ran for 3 seasons and 52 episodes. The suit became iconic in its own right, inspiring comics, video games, and decades of fan campaigns for a live-action adaptation that still hasn't materialized. Terry McGinnis remains the most successful legacy Batman, a character who took over the mantle and made it his own, rather than simply keeping the seat warm. Tim Burton's Batsuit. When Tim Burton's Batman hit theaters in June 1989, audiences had never seen anything like it. Costume designer Bob Ringwood faced an impossible challenge. Make Michael Keaton, a 5'9" comedic actor, look like a terrifying creature of the night. His solution was to abandon spandex entirely. The Batsuit was constructed from foam rubber molded over a neoprene bodysuit, creating the appearance of sculpted muscle and armor. The entire thing was black. No gray, no blue highlights, just solid darkness accented by a yellow bat emblem and brass utility belt. Ringwood studied over 200 comic book issues before settling on the design. Burton rejected any suggestion of the traditional gray and blue color scheme, feeling it wouldn't translate to live action. The all-black approach drew partial inspiration from Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. The suit had serious limitations. Keaton couldn't turn his head. The cowl was glued and bolted to the cape in a way that made any neck movement impossible. This restriction actually influenced how Burton shot the film, leading to the signature bat turn, where Keaton pivots his entire upper body to look at something. Keaton also suffered from claustrophobia inside the costume, though he channeled that anxiety into his performance. This suit became the template for every live-action Batman that followed. The armored look, the all-black color scheme, the inability to turn the head, these elements would persist through 4 more films and multiple reboots. Bob Ringwood didn't just design a costume, he defined what a realistic Batman was supposed to look like. The Schumacher era. When Joel Schumacher took over the franchise for Batman Forever in 1995, he made one change that would haunt him for decades. He added nipples to the Batsuit. Lead sculptor Jose Fernandez said the nipples were inspired by Roman centurion armor and comic book anatomy. Schumacher approved enthusiastically. By 1997's Batman and Robin, the suits had become even more extreme. Pronounced anatomical detail, garish neon accents, glowing blue lighting that made the characters look like they belonged in a rave. Batman and Robin killed the franchise for 8 years. The nippled Batsuits became shorthand for everything wrong with 1990s superhero movies. The Nolan suits. Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins in 2005 asked a question no previous Batman film had bothered with. Where does the suit actually come from? The answer, developed with costume designer Lindy Hemming, was Wayne Enterprises' Applied Sciences division. The Batsuit was repurposed military hardware, a no-mech survival suit originally designed for advanced infantry. This gave the costume a tactical, utilitarian look. Segmented armor plates, a more helmet-like cowl, visible seams and joints that suggested real engineering rather than comic book fantasy. Like the Burton suits, the Batman Begins cowl still restricted head movement. Bale had to do the same full-body turns Keaton had pioneered years earlier. For The Dark Knight in 2008, the suit was completely redesigned to be lighter and more mobile. Smaller armor plates attached to a mesh undersuit allowed for greater range of motion. Most importantly, the cowl was finally separated from the neckpiece, allowing Bale to turn his head naturally, a first for the modern Batman film era. This version looked sleeker and more military, less like a creature and more like special forces equipment. The Nolan suits influenced an entire generation of superhero costume design. The idea that a superhero's outfit should have a practical, in-universe explanation became standard practice. When other franchises rebooted their characters, they often adopted a similar, tactical aesthetic. The DCEU suits. When Ben Affleck debuted as Batman in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice in 2016, costume designer Michael Wilkinson went in the opposite direction from Nolan. Instead of tactical armor, he created a suit that looked ripped directly from the comic book page. The primary Batsuit was gray fabric with a black cape and cowl, the first live-action Batman to use the classic gray and black color scheme since the 1960s TV series. The bat symbol was enormous, stretching across the chest exactly like Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns design. Affleck's Batman was massive, and the suit emphasized that bulk rather than concealing it behind segmented armor. For the fight against Superman, Affleck wore a separate armored suit even more directly Miller-inspired, a hulking mechanical exoskeleton with glowing white eyes, designed to let a human survive combat with a Kryptonian. This was the first time the Dark Knight Returns armor had been fully realized in live action. The suit evolved slightly across subsequent films. Justice League featured a more tactical version with visible armor plating, but the Miller influence remained constant. DC had finally committed to bringing the comics to screen without apology. The Batman. Matt Reeves' The Batman presented a Bruce Wayne still figuring things out. Robert Pattinson's suit looked handmade, assembled from available materials rather than designed in a corporate lab. The angular chest plate doubles as a removable tool. Fans theorized it was made from the guns that killed Bruce's parents, but Reeves confirmed it's simply a practical gadget that pops out when needed. The aesthetic was gothic and utilitarian. Leather, metal, and ballistic fabric that looked like it belonged in a World War I trench. The suit showed wear throughout the film. Scratches, dents, bullet impacts accumulating over one brutal night. This wasn't a billionaire's fantasy. It was a desperate young man's attempt to become something more than human. That covers every major Batman suit from the comics and films. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let us know which design is your favorite.